Welcome to Elementary. I hope you're having a fabulous Monday wherever you are. Well, today my topic is all about buying a home. So it's not specific to anyone in particular, but obviously if you're a first-time home buyer or you haven't bought a home in a while, this topic may be of great interest to you. Jacqueline Watson, and I'm a realtor with Sutton Group Tower in Toronto. Today we're going to dive deep into everything you need to know about buying a home. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a downsizer, or someone just dreaming, this episode may be for you. So let's get real. Step one is getting pre-approved. And it isn't glamorous, I know. And no one says, pop the champagne, I'm pre-approved. Or congrats, you're pre-approved. But it is a great foundation to have because without being pre-approved, you're just hunting blindly. I mean, can you imagine the heartbreak if you were to tell someone, hey, I think I'm going to qualify in the 900K area, but you're stuck at the 750 solid. Now, there are a couple of different factors that go into play when you're talking about pre-approval, and we've talked about this when we talk about mortgages and stuff like that. So there's so much more that go into it. If you have a car payment, if you had other debts, if you have credit card payments, if you have, for example, student loans, all of that is taken into account, and then they come up with this formula about how much you would qualify for on a mortgage. And a lot of times people go online and they do these little 2-minute, like, what would I qualify for? But it's not like the in-depth calculation. So there's so much that goes into that calculation. So I would say to someone, hey, it's really, really important that you take the time and actually get pre-approved. Going in with a solid pre-approval, you still need the conditions. So remember that. You still need the condition of financing, even with a solid pre-approval. Because I think it's important to be ready for what is to come. But pre-approval is step number one. I tell people that all the time. If not, you're just kind of spinning your wheels, looking at things you can't afford, getting disappointed. At least once you're pre-approved, you know how to make the money work, right? So number two is the other most important one is finding an agent. Now I'm going to be biased here and say pick me, but let's be honest, I'm not for everyone and everyone's not for me. And that's important. But what's more important is that you find someone that is really good at what they do, really trustworthy, and this is going to be your biggest asset. You want to be able to trust the person to give you the straight goods, right? And that's most important when it comes down to it. You want someone who understands not just helping you buy this home, but also really being your guide. There may be twists and turns in this road, but they're there to navigate you. They're there to be the GPS. They're there to say, hey, let's recalculate. Let's not crash on this one. The whole 9 yards. But most importantly, the person needs to be someone who understands the dreams you're hoping to achieve. Now, there's a reality, absolutely, between your budget and what you want and which neighborhood you want to be in. So those are some gives that you have to understand, that if your budget is X and neighborhood, your prime neighborhood calls for Y, then there's some rethinking to do there. And then step number three is house hunting. By far, I call it the most exciting step, but also the most overwhelming. It can be the most overwhelming, right? So I know some people love walking through people's homes, but sometimes there's so many choices that you may have FOMO. You may think, oh my goodness, like, I want. So a lot of times people will say to you, what's on your must-have list, and then what's on your nice-to-have list. And by far you can say, hey, this is on my must-have list. But sometimes the nice-to-have list seems to seep into the must-have list, but the money doesn't go up, right? The budget doesn't get any broader. So I would say make sure you understand what you're getting into. And your home will suit you for now and maybe a couple of years as you grow into it. But as you grow, you might even grow out of your home at some point, and that's okay, because at that point you know better what would suit you best. Now, I'll give you an example. You know, when my daughter was little and we were looking for a house, we had a small townhouse to start, and that suited us well. But then we bought a house that was a little bigger, and so it was a detached home, and then I felt like that house suited us well. But then again, you know, as things progress and as you progress through life, sometimes what happens is you feel that, hey, I should have just bought a bigger home. But maybe that bigger home could have costed you another, I would say if it was $20,000, don't flinch. Get what you want, because $20,000 really is $100 a month if you can afford it, right? I mean, for some people, they might be like really deep on their budget, and 100 maybe a little excessive. But if it was like $100,000, then manage with what you have, like maybe and some, as opposed to just spending that money. Now, it all depends on what you're planning to do. Sometimes people get started in a home, and as they progress through life, they have kids, and then they have more kids, and now they're on kid number 3 or 4, and then they have twins, and perhaps their needs have changed in a heartbeat. And that's okay, because life happens, and that's just the way it is. So house hunting can be a really, really exciting time. But one thing I must say to you, like I said, a pro tip is about the nice to have list and the must have list. But really what's more important is when you're looking through homes, don't just look at the aesthetics of the home. Look further, look at the big ticket items, because those are the things that you don't get to see. Those are the things that are hidden costs that would cost you even more than completing, the paint on a house or something that is just a design factor. Like, you don't get to keep the furniture. And I know, I say this, but people get so stuck on this furniture piece that they sometimes forget that the furniture doesn't stay, but you get to keep that roof that may be on its last legs, and you get to keep the furnace that may not last to the next season, or you get to keep the AC that is probably already out the window. Like, all of these things are big ticket items. So those are things that you should really kind of look closely at to make sure. And I'm not saying don't buy a house because of those big ticket items. Just make sure that you are. Step number 4 is making an offer. And this can be quite overwhelming because, let me tell you, you'll be like signing or dabbing your signature quite a few times in quite a few places. So a couple of things with the offer. This is when the important part kicks in on how the offer is written. So it's important to ask questions. It's important to know what exactly is involved with this offer. So when I talk about writing the offer, it's about conditions. It's about closing date. It's about what's included. It's about inspections. It's about all of those things, like financing conditions, inspections. It's not just about the selling price. Like, if you're a seller getting an offer, I think people get tunnel vision when offers come in. I know. I'll give you an example. I had one seller that was selling, and they got all the offers, and one offer was maybe a little less in price, but it was a firm offer, and the person was not understanding. A firm offer means you're firm today, like you get to move ahead. And this person was a strong, firm offer. Like, it was, and so they were like, we can go with the other offer. It's more money. but the other offer had conditions, and that's okay because conditions firm up. But then you also have to kind of understand who the party is on the other side, and this party that was a student. But you know, my client just had to go through with it, even though they asked my opinion, and I told them I said this is who I would pick, but you know, I'll support whatever you choose to do, but this is who I would pick. And of course, they chose to do whatever they wanted to do, which is okay. It's their house to sell. I'm there to give them advice and help them make a rational choice, right? But I'm also there to pick up the pieces. So when the offer fell through, I bounced back right into action, and she was sold firm in a couple of hours thereafter. So that's kind of where you have to be mindful of. Not all offers are created equally, and I know people just want to see who has the highest price, who has my closing date, all of those, but there's so much more with an offer than just money. I mean, it's fool's gold if you don't consider all of the other steps to it. And then step number 5 is what we call the conditional period. So in this case, if you had like for example, the condition of financing and the condition of inspection, and if you're buying a condo, the condition of the status, and that by far tends to take a little longer, the status, because if they don't have the status on hand, while the status only has a shelf life, so technically it's important to order the status when you get an offer and the offer is conditional, and you go ahead and you get the status. And so when you get the status, you know, we tell our clients, look, don't go with the 5-day, because the 5-day will take the cheapest will take 10 days to come in. Go with the more expedited version, even though you have to pay maybe double the amount, which is maybe $200 as opposed to $100. But that way your status comes in sooner and your conditions clauses close sooner in that case, right? Of course, if you have an inspection, I would say get a good inspector. Not all inspectors are equal. And so get a good inspector, and quite frankly, pay attention, be present for the inspection. Don't, like, I don't know. There are some people who tell me they've never been to an inspection. I have not had a single inspection where my client is not present, unless they're like out of town or something to that effect. But I have not had a single inspection where my client is not present. Technically, like, unless you're a foreign buyer or something, which you can't be right now because it's a ban, but I expect my clients will be there for the inspection. It's their home. They need to hear it. They need to be present. I've actually had people tell me that they didn't know they had to be present for, and these are not people that are buying a first home, right? They were like, oh, I didn't know I had to be there for an inspection. And I'm like, it's your home. You should be present. You should know what's going on and what's pointed out, right, with the inspection. And you also kind of get to walk through and take a look at what the inspector is looking at. So if the inspector is just walking through and really not doing a proper job, or if you had questions, you'd be able to ask those questions at that point, right? So those are the inspection clauses. It's really, really important to pay attention to that. And even if you have to pay extra, a good inspection will save you thousands in the long run. So don't bypass inspections. And actually, let me say this, because more and more people are looking at inspections even for brand new houses, because you should see some of the things we're finding in brand new properties that haven't even been lived in. So it's a little odd, because you think a brand new house should come perfect, and it's not so. So yeah, pay that amount for inspections. You're buying a house, $500 is nothing. It's a drop in the ocean compared to being surprised at the tail end of it. So once, all of the conditions are lifted, so to speak, fulfilled, this paperwork, of course, and this is when the deal becomes firm. So on our end, it's called, sold firm. In other words, it becomes firm, and we're just waiting for title search date. And so this is when the lawyer does their thing, and also title search, and then closing date. So there's lots that can happen from that time on. And then the one thing I will say is that when you're talking about closing date, it's by far the most exciting date, right? Because this is when you get the keys in your hand. This is when you are ready to take that leap. But there's so many moving pieces, and you've got to move, you've got to load up a truck, you've got to get all of these things in place. And a lot of times I'll say to my clients is that if you can sell a property and not buy a property on the same day, it's by far the perfect scenario, because sometimes monies don't get transferred at the same time. There could be a delay, and there could be a little bit of a hiccup for the bank to send the money in time, or all of this is electronic, right? And you want to make sure that you are not stressed out because you have to move into that house that night and sleep in a... I've had people who will say, well, we'll move the following week, we'll just put our stuff in storage. And then I have others that will say, well, we'll bring a big enough truck and then we'll just keep the truck overnight. Some people will do it a week before and bridge the loan if they have to, or some people will make sure they've got a bridge financing in place that kind of overlaps. And then some others will say, well, we'll take the other property a bit sooner and bridge our financing and move into our home like a week, almost maybe a week sooner. Therefore, they've started into their new house, and then when the money comes, and they pay off whatever they have to pay off. But frankly, if you're looking at taking out cash from one home and putting it on the other, you really need that money on hand, and you can't close without it. So it's really imperative that you are totally prepared. I'm not scaring you. We do a lot of these that close, buy and sell on the same day. And the lawyers kind of are pretty organized in getting those deals, but there are hiccups, and by far, there are hiccups. I had one case where I don't think it was last minute. I think the people were not disclosing, but on the last day, it's pretty it's stressful for my clients. We managed it okay, we managed it, but this person didn't have the money to close, and so it was a big problem. But my clients hadn't bought; they had moved in with their family, and they had bought, but they were not closing right away. So we managed it. It closed after the weekend, but they just got an extra couple of days, and it ended up closing. But it can happen. Things happen on your... Listen, do not go out and buy a new car right before closing, because that is by far the worst thing you can do. Because if the bank runs, and the banks and lenders are getting very, very strict these days. So if you're tight on your financing clauses and you buy a new car, that shifts quite a bit. And so I would say you don't do that. If my clients show up for their last revisit and they're rolling up in a new vehicle, I'm ready to have a little... My stomach is really ready to give way, because if especially if they're tight with their financing, and they haven't kind of put two and two together. So I always say, don't buy a new car, don't change your credit in any way, don't go out and buy all new furniture. Wait till you close and then deal with that. So closing day comes, and congratulations, pop the champagne and coffee, whichever floats your boat. But it is an exciting time. It is a new chapter, and it is definitely time for you to celebrate. But it's really, really important that you are aware of how overwhelming this process can be, and that you really need someone who is in your corner, who is not just gone on closing day, who's there to really kind of iron out any things that really that you encounter on closing day. And it's a really exciting process, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's it's important that you kind of turn your mind towards it. But like I said, number one, most important is to get a pre-approval, and not just a bank telling you, yeah, you should be okay for this. That is not a pre-approval. Like someone really working your numbers, pulling your credit, understanding where you land, giving you the breakdown of what it's going to cost you every month, so that you don't get sticker shock when it's time to close, that you know exactly what this is going to cost you if you go this way, or what it's going to cost you if you settle for something a little on the lower side of your budget. So I would say, seeing that you have no questions, for those of you watching, I want to thank you for spending your dinner hour with me. And if you don't know me, my name is Jacqueline Watson. I'm a realtor with Sutton Group Tower in Toronto. And thank you again. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you. Bye.